My name is Monica Lindsay. I have the great honor and pleasure of welcoming you tonight from our organization, Connecting the Dots. We want to thank you for joining us for the screening of this powerful documentary and the engaging panel discussion that will follow. I do want to share a little bit about Connecting the Dots and who we are. We partnered with the Equal Justice Initiative out of Montgomery, Alabama, through a call to action from the Maryland Lynching Memorial Project. The request was to form a community-based, diverse, grassroots coalition that would actively seek remembrance and reconciliation, with the understanding that the racial injustices of the past are an indelible mark on our current state and must be confronted and reconciled in order for all of us to heal. So to this end, we've been working to provide many such opportunities to the community, with our most permanent effort being the establishment of a lynching memorial marker, the first gifted to the state of Maryland by the Equal Justice Initiative. This marker was dedicated and placed here in Annapolis in September 2019, honoring the 5 victims of lynching in Anne Arundel County. When the opportunity to host the screening came up, we could not say no to another excellent chance to engage the community. And this story of inspiration, survival, and endurance has to be shared. So we are so very pleased to be able to present this film and the esteemed panel this evening. However, before introducing the panel, I would be remiss not to mention the tremendous behind the scenes work of our entire CTD Connecting the Dots committee and all of our co-sponsors. That includes the Maryland Lynching Memorial Project, the Caucus of African American Leaders, the cast of Anne Arundel County, the NAACP of Anne Arundel County, March on Maryland, WISE, Action Annapolis, and the Maryland Hall. We are so very grateful to our co-sponsors and partners for their assistance in making this evening a reality. So at this time, I would like to introduce you to our incredible panel and moderator. Our moderator this evening is Allie the Conversation Starter. Allie is the mother of 3, an educator, activist, and community organizer. To combat racism, she established a business called the Change Starter, founded a group called the Conversation Starters, and hosts a bi-weekly Facebook show called Voices of the Movement. They are grounded in educating the masses on racism while dismantling it at the same time through consistent, raw, and honest conversations on race and its issues. Allie's looking beautiful in her red this evening. Also on our panel are Mr. Winfred Rembert, who hopefully will be joining us soon. We are so grateful that he was available to share this evening with us. He is a Star Wars fanatic, a leather artist, and the only living survivor of a lynching. Dr. Shirley Whitaker, who developed a friendship with Mr. Rembert and is the film's producer and on a mission to memorialize the forgotten 4,000 African Americans lynched during the Jim Crow era. And Ms. Taylor Rees, who put her talents behind film directing to bring us this impactful and wonderful documentary, as well as Ms. Tina Johnson, descendant of George Armwood, a victim of lynching in Somerset County, Maryland. We so appreciate their presence tonight and are really looking forward to hearing what they have to say. So let's get started. We will begin by screening the film, followed by a panel discussion, and then a question and answer session. So please feel free to enter your questions in the Q&A feature of the webinar, and we will try our best to answer them. And we will begin the discussion directly after the screening of this powerful, moving film. Again, thank you again for joining us, and let's watch the documentary.
Here's my favorite of all the whole Jedi. Obi-Wan Kenobi. He's my favorite. He's just so fantastic with his mind. Feel how light that is. It's light as a feather. Oh, look at my Yoda.
He loves these things.
Now that's a boy there. You know what? If you take him out of the box, he'll run around all over the floor and talk. And you can ask him certain things and he'll answer you. I got two of them.
I sense your fear. You are right to be afraid.
He got killed. I'll tell you the reason I like it, because I never had toys when I was growing up. The little boy in me just loved the movie and the characters. They're just so fantastic, you know? I'm going to give them to my kids when I'm gone. Art is a story. I don't know no other way you can say what art is besides it tells a story. I'm telling a story about my life, and it's going to take 50 pictures to do it. I got 8 done. It's going to take 50. I'm putting these pictures on here and they'll never fade away. Never. Never dreamed that I had the talent to become an artist. But my wife kept telling me, oh, you can do it. You got talent, Winfred. You can do this and you can, but you know, wives can say them kind of things, you know. But is it true?
Winfred has a true account of how we live, how we survive in the South.
When a patient walks into my room, they expect to have a seat and for me to talk with them about their history, about their journey. I take that information and I use it to help them heal. I need to look at history. And sometimes patients come in and tell you horror stories, but I can't discard it because I need it in order to help that patient to live. I'm a physician, but I'm also an artist. I see myself a little bit of both. Winfred is an artist who both from the South, and I had the opportunity to go to one of his art shows, and there he was. He's had a lot of health problems, hypertension, diabetes, prolonged over 40 years of stress, and I think that stress interferes with your ability to sleep. So how many hours of sleep you get a night?
34.
3 or 4 hours?
Mm-hmm.
And that's with the medicine?
Yeah.
Without the medicine, what you get?
Without the medicine, I get nothing.
And this been going on for how long?
About 4 years.
Whenever he do one of those pictures, he gets sick. He have to go to the doctor, and she has to talk to him, and he has to double up on that medicine in order to get some rest.
For you, it's post-traumatic stress disorder.
Yeah.
So it traumatizes you again and make you relive what you had gone through.
Exactly.
And the thing is that sometimes acknowledging the history does help some people to heal.
It may help other people. Not me, though. I don't think it does. It's a different kind of art that's healing. My kind is not healing. Do his cap. Do his face. Put it on his ear. Do I put hope in my art? Not much. Since everything is done from the past, there's not much hope in it. I can sit down and start thinking in my mind, or go back when I was 5 and 6 years old. I can remember. God gave me a good memory. We lived on a plantation, and that was the early 60s. It don't take long for you to realize that something's wrong with picking cotton every day, all day. You start out on your rows, you can't see the end. You spend all day and you never get to the end of your row. At the time I was 14, I ran away from, not home, but I ran away from the cotton field. So I was doing everything I thought possible to live a different type of life. That's her signal, that she know I'm working. She hear this. And I go through the night, 3 or 4, 5 o'clock in the morning. And when she don't hear that, she's down the stairs like a bullet.
The trauma that he's seen and the trouble he has to go to sleep and the rest, I've seen that increase as he get older. The dramatic stuff, that's when you have a problem. But those are the ones he really need to get done. Sometimes he wakes up, completely up, calling whoever it is that's running him. He call him by name. And he'll be saying, stop.
If I don't take my medicine, then I can't sleep with Patsy. Because I'm going through, if I'm dreaming, I may punch Patsy. Let me go back to the scar that I'm carrying. I joined the civil rights movement at 14 years old. When you are part of the movement, you make a name for yourself. And all the white people know you. And they are waiting to get their hands on you. I stayed in jail over a year with no charges, nothing. So I took a roll of toilet paper, stuck it in the jar, flooded the jail. And when the sheriff came back, he came back and he was going through the nigger thing with me. He kicked me 2 or 3 times. And about the 3rd time he kicked me, I decided I wouldn't let him kick me anymore. Grabbed his legs and I threw him to the ground. And he went for his gun. I took it away from him. And he's begging me not to shoot him. So I said, well, I'm not going to shoot you, but I'm going to lock you up. So I locked him in a cell and I fled. Went to this house of civil rights workers, I thought. The woman answered the door. I told her what had happened. She went in the next room and called the police. Next thing I know, every white man in Cuthbert, Georgia, standing out there in the yard. Threw me in the trunk of the car. About a 30-minute ride, and when they opened up the trunk, I saw these ropes hanging from the tree, nooses. A place designed, looked like to hang people. When they put the rope up around my feet, pulled me up in the tree, here comes the deputy sheriff that I locked in the cell. And he's got a knife. And he come up and he grabbed my private parts. And he took his knife and he stuck me. They was gonna castrate me and then hang me and burn me. I was 19 years old. And there I am bleeding like a pig hanging up in the tree, ready to be slaughtered like a hog. And then another white man grabbed his arm and told him, don't do that. So we got better things we can do with this nigga. I took my shirt, rolled it up, put between my legs like that when I was in the trunk of the car and squeezed my legs together. I saved myself.
My mother used to tell me, she said, you cannot internalize the pain. If you internalize that pain, it just chips away at you. In this country, no one really genuinely talk about the people who were lynched. Sometimes they would lynch people, they put them in the water with weights so the family would never see them again. Sometimes they would take the bodies and cut them up and sell the pieces. Sometimes they would take the body after they lynched it and burn it up so the families would not have anything. Those are ones that were recorded. What about the ones that were not recorded? There was close to 3,000 to 4,000 people who were lynched. And a lot of these people never got a funeral. It was often too dangerous for the families to retrieve those bodies. And sometimes there was no bodies to retrieve. It's not just Black history. This is American history.
You don't survive a lynching. Usually, when you lynch, you dead. I just happened to be one man that was saved. He'd have hurt me. He'd have kept me from being maybe what I could have been. Yes, it has. It held me back because it's brutal, and no one wants to talk about it.
First time I saw you, I was trying to, medically speaking, I was trying to figure out, why does he have these on his hand?
Those are chain gang marks, but one more than the other.
Why this one more than this one?
Because that's my punching hand.
Uh-huh.
I didn't learn to box, I learned to survive.
Working on the highways and byways and wearing.
You hear them mourning their lives away. Then you hear somebody say, well, don't you know that's the sound of the men working on the chain gang. Mm-hmm.
Wow. I like the part.
Beautiful. That's beautiful. Y'all gonna make me cry when you.
It's a beautiful morning. You got your long johns on? Mm-hmm. Okay, good. Then I can walk you to Georgia. What you think? You can lean against me.
I'm sorry, lean on you that way.
I got it. Don't you see how I'm a strong Georgia girl?
I see that.
That's right.
I'm giving out.
Well, it's a pretty day to do that on. You pick cotton before?
You know it. We used to pour water in there, but they got hip to that.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Only thing way more, put a brick in it.
Did you do that?
Yeah.
You put a brick in it?
Yeah.
Oh, God, I didn't know about that one.
Yeah,
I didn't put a brick. Hey, you. Hi. Hey. Hi. How you doing? Good. Thank you for coming. Getting ready for tomorrow, the 29th. Trying to pull it all together. Hey, Nathaniel. You know that painting I did with the KKK?
Yeah.
Could you bring it to me in Springfield? I decided to have a funeral for the over 4,000 African Americans who were lynched in the United States to close that chapter and move forward. America has to do the same thing to help heal this country. You'll get some pushback from people. Why you want to stir that up? It hasn't been stirred enough. People were saying, that's so depressing. I said, well, if you think this depressing, try hanging from a tree. What can I do? I can't bring them back, but I can give them a prayer. Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm Dr. Shirley Jackson Whitaker. And the question we ask tonight is, why do we need to be here? We need to be here because our country needs to heal. And some bad things happen in this country where Americans tortured other Americans due to the color of their skin. That went on so long in America. What are you going to do about it? Because I remember as a little girl when we went to a funeral and they lowered that casket in the ground, the minister would say, ashes to ashes.
Dust to dust.
A lot of our people never got that. So we're looking back in history so this patient can live. We're looking back in history so this patient can thrive. We're looking back in history so this patient can become very strong. But this patient can only live and get stronger if we're willing to look back. So tonight we start. There's an African proverb that says, you speak my name and I will live forever. So tonight we will speak some names.
My name is Nasir and I'm representing Hamlet.
My name is Mary Turner. I was the 19-year-old pregnant wife of the wonderful Hayes Turner.
My name is Lame Thomas, and I am representing an unnamed Negro.
But when I confronted his murderers, they lynched me and burned my body.
My name's Kaya Bellamy, and I'm representing Eugene Azar.
They ripped my unborn baby out of my belly, ensuring his death along with mine.
I am James Howard, and they told me I had a choice.
Yeah.
Either I could die with my son, or I could watch him die and live to tell the story. I had no choice. I had my wife and other children to look after, to live for. And as my son cried and begged and pleaded for his life, they bound his hands and feet and forced him into the river. And as I stood, trembling with tears running down my face, watching my son sink to the bottom of the river, never to rise again, never to rise again.
So in unison, whoever you're representing, speak that name.
Yeah, I see.
Oh, she in the chair.
Lynching is on my back, and it's dragging me down. Even today, that's been 40-some years ago. And even today now, it's dragging me down. can't rest, man. I can't rest. I lay in my bed and I can't rest. I'm running for my life every night. Somebody's after me. And I don't know what to do.
I'm mad about what happened. And it didn't seem like there was nobody there to say, hey, this is wrong. Don't do him like that. It hurts me to see him in that kind of pain. That pain is there, and it needs to be erased.
We commit to the ground these bodies and these souls, and let us forever remember and reflect upon the lives that have been nameless and unknown for many years. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust.
A funeral is a healing for those that are alive, giving respect to those that have departed. I think they wanted to be remembered and to have the rite of passage, the right to move on.
I can't be healed. I don't think I can be healed. I think I'll go to the grave with what I got holding me down and holding me back. Even though those things were done to me years ago, they're still holding me back. Can I send a message? Can I change this? I can't change this world. I know I'm not a big enough man to do that, but I can put a dent in it. But you just keep going and going and going and going. I love you. I wish you could see me now. I wish you could see the work that I'm doing now, Mama. I wish you could be with me now. I hope you up there looking down at your child doing this leather work. I guess, Mama, you one of the reasons that I keep doing it. Yes, you are.
Okay, everybody. You're gonna have to bear with me for just a minute. So what we're gonna do is we are going to take 3 minutes to ground ourselves. We are going to listen to ancestral African music from East Africa. And the music is called Tuko Pamoja, and it means we are together. And it is a saying that is said by our relations when there is healing that needs to take place. And when you have two opposites that are trying to figure out how to handle chaos. and things that have went wrong by one group or one person to another. This saying is Kiswahili, and it is also said by the community to let those individuals who are in need of healing, to let them know that they are supported. And so we're going to listen for 3 minutes to ground ourselves. And I'm going to ask everyone, if you're watching, if you're on here, to close your eyes. And so for right now, I'm going to ask you to close your eyes. And as you close your eyes, I want you to figure out your own breathing method. If it's just through your nose, in and out through your nose, because that's how I breathe, or if it's through your nose and then out of your mouth. But as we begin the music, I want you to breathe, and I want you to say these 3 things in your head, and say them for as many times as you want. But I want you to say, I am protected, because that's sometimes we don't feel protected. And we've got to start claiming our space and our protection. And so I want you to say, I am protected. I want you to say in your head, I am healing. Sometimes you have to keep telling yourself, I am healing, even if you don't feel that you're healing, because the first step to healing is saying, I am healing. You've got to claim that space. And then say, I am loved, because you are loved. And so I would like you to say, I am protected, I am healing, I am loved. I am protected, I am healing, I am loved. If you don't believe it, it doesn't matter, because you may not believe it, but when you say it, your body believes it, and your ancestors who are supporting you and who have been with you believe it, and they need you to believe it. And so I am going to go ahead and share my screen with you right now. And for 3 minutes, we are going to ground, because we are going to become protected, and we are going to start working on our healing, and we are going to remember that we are loved.
Yeah.
All right, ladies and gents, we are going to stop now. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen with you. And I ask that if you haven't opened your eyes up to go ahead and do that now, and to take one last breath in and hold it, and then breathe out. And now we're about to get into the conversation. Before we get into the conversation with our panelists, I'm going to try my best to quickly read their bios. And so I will not be looking at you. I'll be looking at my screen, and so bear with me. And so we have Shirley Jackson Whitaker. Dr. Whitaker, who is the producer of Ashes to Ashes, the film of a funeral service to celebrate and remember the over 4,000 African American that endured lynching and other forms of brutalization and never received a proper burial. And Dr. Whitaker, a nephrologist, is also an artist in several mediums, with her latest book of etchings now in the Library of Congress, Getty Museum, Boston Atheneum, and several colleges and universities. We have Tina Johnson, is a resident of Somerset County, Maryland, where her grandmother, Mary Armwood Braxton, a first cousin of the last person recorded to be lynched in the state of Maryland, George Armwood. She is an artist, therapeutic art life coach, social activist, and the arts manager and coordinator of Worcester County Developmental Center, where she oversees the arts programs for adults with developmental and intellectual abilities. She is also the mother of 3 wonderful girls. And then we have Taylor Rees, and she is a filmmaker, photojournalist, and avid explorer. And she works around environmental and humanitarian issues, bringing new perspectives and deeper public understanding to the complexities of climate change, conservation, indigenous rights, environmental justice, and extractive industries, which we know they're all tied. And then we have Winfred Rembert, an African-American artist who hand tools and paints on leather canvases, and grew up in Cuthbert, Georgia, where he spent much of his childhood laboring in the cotton fields, and who is a lynching survivor. And so with that, I'm going to stop, and we're going to dig into this conversation. This film is traumatizing, and it is trauma. And anyone who has either experienced lynching, the attempt, or who does this work is traumatized. And every time they view films like this, they are traumatized. So I would like to ask the panelists, how do you manage being re-traumatized over and over and over again? Because especially if you are of the African diaspora, we carry generational trauma anyway. And so now when you have to come back into these spaces and watch films, and also you're doing the work, how are you managing being re-traumatized? And any panelist, you can jump in as you choose. Don't make me call you. Miss Shirley Whitaker, you did the hand back like this. Yes. Dr. Whitaker.
I try to compartmentalize and try to limit. I love to read history, but I just finished reading Caste, this book by Isabel Whitaker, I think it's Whitaker, the one that did, it just came out, but it's about the caste system in America. And I found that it just took me back to the lynching, and I just had to finish it and go to something else that was much lighter, because it does, I mean, I find, even I see this film here, I've seen it several times, but it makes me cry. It makes me sad. And I see those bodies, people hanging from trees. It has always bothered me, and that hasn't changed. It's just, I know that for me, like Winfred, I think, does, we try to use art as a way to release. I do try to release some. It doesn't erase it. It just make me, I just finished a piece about Mary Turner. And that has, her story has always bothered me. So I find that I had to do this, I had to get it done. And so I just finished it this week. But I try to do something else that's a little bit lighter. I did recently a book for children. I didn't ask to be born Black, I just got lucky. It just has a lighter slant to it. But I don't think dealing in this idea of lynching, I don't think, I just always have internalized a lot of that pain, but I try to limit it so it doesn't destroy me, because it can.
Tina, thank you, Dr. Whitaker.
Welcome.
Sorry, had to unmute. But yeah, I agree. I would say that definitely, like, working in the field and kind of being out there, it takes a toll on you after a while. I mean, and I would also even say, like, just like locally, talking about it quite often, and sometimes going places and people going, "Oh, I know who you are. You're the girl that was in that lynching video." It keeps bringing you kind of back to that moment. And for me, it was the moment of watching my grandmother cry as she was telling me the story. And my grandmother was a very strong person. I never really seen her cry, but I do remember at that moment, it was just like one single tear that dropped. And then as soon as that one tear fell, she stopped talking about it, and she never talked about it again. And yeah, and I would say I do the same thing. I usually express my emotions and my feelings through my work. Not just through my artwork, but also working with people who I feel like, you know, that not only I can help, but also helps me as well. I just feel like not constantly, but talking about it and expressing it, not only does it take you back, but it also helps you release as well. So yeah, I guess just mainly just talking about it and releasing some of it. And I will honestly say that there are times where it's on my mind quite often, and there's times where I can't sleep at night, and you know, and I'll go to that medicine cabinet and I'll say, like, "Doc, I haven't been sleeping. I need something." And I will honestly say, in October, it seems to get a little worse. So So yeah, lately there's not much sleep going on, but there's a lot of work. And sometimes you have to channel that energy into work and into getting certain messages and things out there.
Mr. Rembert. Rembert. We can't hear you. Can you unmute for us? Can someone unmute him? I don't have the capacity to unmute him. Uh-oh.
I'm gonna call him because
That's fine. That's
That's
fine. That's fine. Can I, while we're waiting?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, all right.
How are you managing?
Okay, I'm doing pretty well. It's hard for me. It's been hard for me for the last 50 years. You know, I don't, there's not very few times that you survive a lynching. You know, but I happen to thank God that He sent an angel to rescue me. And but I tell you this, I haven't for the last 40, 50 years, I haven't been able to rest or to do anything in my artwork that has to do anything with my life in general, which includes the lynching and what I went through as a young teenager, you know, and trying to survive brutality of what goes on to Black people in the South. So, but now there's a medicine that I take that does some good to me, but I'm out of the bed on the floor at least twice a week. My eyes black now from I fell out the bed 2 days ago, and I hit my eye on the corner of a chair that was near my bed. And I don't understand myself how I'm able to fall out of the bed the way that I do. But I don't understand the strength that I have to do that. I'm just out of the bed, in the air, on the floor. And that's all. I think that's all because of the near lynching of mine. I think that's all, it left me with that. And I won't be able to get rid of it. I don't believe in my whole life, the rest of my life, that I'll be able to get rid of my nightmares, you know? And I don't even sleep with my wife because I'm afraid to sleep with her, because I may hurt her, you know? And that's just a terrible thing. That's a terrible thing when you can't sleep with your companion, you know? So I just try to do the best that I can with what I got left, and whatever that is. I try to do, you know, as best as I can. So I don't know what to tell the people. I don't know what to tell people who ask me about. All I know, I got my life, the rest of my life ahead of me. That's terrible. It's a terrible thing, my life ahead of me, you know. And I'm hoping and praying to God that some things may change in my life, but that's the way it is for now. Okay, Shirley.
Thank you.
Okay, Shirley.
Hey. Hello. How are you?
All right.
Taylor, what about you? I know that your journey, of course, is definitely different from the panelists, but I know also too that you are doing this work. And so how is that impacting you? You know, being someone, you know, in this work, but that does not carry the same trauma, but is sharing the stories.
Yeah. Well, thank you all, Tina, Allie, especially, like the space you've created in this moment to have this discussion. Unlike a lot of the film festival Q&As we end up in, so it's a real privilege to be able to touch on these realities. And you know, I feel mostly incredibly lucky, at least when it comes to being on a journey of having a deeper understanding of the trauma of the Black community in America. And that was, you know, somewhat incidental. I grew up next to Shirley, down the street from her. So this isn't a story that I sought out as a white woman. It's kind of a bit of a family affair. One thing led to the next. And, you know, I'm extremely lucky to be here, to be listening in this moment as well. And so, you know, it's definitely, as a filmmaker, my job and my strength is to practice my listening. And that often, you know, it does, you fully enter into these worlds which are not yours, unless you're telling your own story. And that's taught me a lot. And I think on a, you know, personally, all humans, and myself included, and I'm sure everyone here has been through some sort of trauma or difficulty in your life. So as we learn from each other, as we learn how we're all healing in this moment, how we're all addressing our history, both personal and collective, you know, we need each other. And Shirley, I mean, just having Shirley and Winfred in my life like, has changed me, and I love them both tremendously. And yeah, just honored to be on this path.
For all of you all, how has being in this space impacted your lives? You know, like that journey, like how has your journey been impacted? How has your lifestyle been impacted? Because I know that the way that you navigate through this world and through the United States of America is a whole lot different than most people, because most people, lynching is not on the radar. Even though we know it is like a key foundational component to the creation of this nation, you know, but it's not in the forefront. It's not in their minds at all. And so you all are doing this work, and you're doing it intentionally, or you have lived this experience, and through some shape or form, you're still doing the work. So how has your lives and your lifestyles been impacted and changed? Like how are you navigating through this? I saw that look, Dr. Whitaker.
Well, I guess I should start. Oh,
sorry, you can go on.
Okay. Well, I would say that it's definitely changed, I guess, my life course a lot. Like my grandmother told me the story about her cousin when I was about 12, about George Armwood being lynched. And I just remember hearing that story, but at the 12, I couldn't really grasp the concept of everything that she was really saying. So the whole situation didn't come back to me until I was in my late 20s, and I decided to go back to school. And I was going to Salisbury University, which is a predominantly white school. And I remember being in a Maryland history course, and we were learning about Maryland history, and we got to the section of our textbook that talked about lynching. And the section was 2 sentences. And the sentence was, the last person lynched in the state of Maryland was George Armwood from Somerset County. And then it just said, there's no other recordings after that point. And then that was it. That was the only thing that was in an entire textbook. And I'm going, this is it? And then I believe I just froze when I looked at the name George Armwood, because at that moment is when, everything went right back to my grandmother and that conversation that we had when I was only 12. And that two sentences that I read, it caused me to want to know more, not just about George Armwood, but about my grandmother and about my family, because to me, we were worth more than just two sentences. And he was more than just the last person that was lynched in the state of Maryland. So I felt like, for me, I guess, I don't really know if it was to make me feel better or if it was remembering my grandmother. I'm not really sure exactly what pushed me to want to get more knowledge, but I will say that it's been a nonstop battle ever since then. And anything I could possibly do to learn more or to educate others, I do it. And then not only that, but looking at my own kids, because I have 3 kids, and the way you raise your kids, I believe, also changed. I feel like before that moment, I was much more lenient, and I didn't look at things as much as I do now. And now I feel like every little thing I have to nitpick, and I have to make sure it's correct. And when I send you out into the community, I need you to act a certain way because I need you to come home to me. And I feel like with today's time, those same feelings and emotions, they just get stronger as we get older.
Well, for me, I've learned I have pain because the suffering that my people have endured. But I realize that to have survived 400 years of this, I realize about the resilience and this thing. There was hate, but for them, in order to survive, I often more so now trying to, what are the things they did to survive? We're in a situation now where people have had 4 years of Trump, and you think, nothing else has touched this. But when I think of 400 years of this and we're still here, and I think there's some resilience and hope. And I try to incorporate that and understand why was it that they was able to survive. And I read about the things that was done when 200 or 300 was killed at one time, and how they tortured African Americans. I mean, this has been going on for 400 years. I'm trying to think, how did they survive this? I've interviewed about 20 to 30 African Americans that are 80 and old and asked, why is it that we survived? Because I looked, my goal was to remember those that was lynched and give them their transition, give them their ashes to ashes. But what can I gain from the fact that they lived and that we are still here? And I think over 400 years, I think certain changes in our DNA, and I like to think that there is in us a DNA of resilience and hope, that they were never, ever able to destroy that. And it's not because they didn't try. Somehow we have continued to fight. And I try to keep my mind centered on that and try to incorporate that in what I do and where I am, with the idea that the job isn't, as far as ashes to ashes, is not finished. There's more to be done. But I have this thing in my head about the noose, and American education through the lens of lynching. And that noose it was centered around hate, but somehow entwined in there was some hope and resilience, because that's the only thing that enabled us to survive. And because there's nobody standing there to help us. When I read how brutal they were, but how insane they were to for what they did to us. But we're still here. And I think it's somehow, as a community, we gave support, hope, and resilience. And that's what I try to incorporate and pass on to people when I interact with them.
And what you just said is powerful, because everything that you said and the description, like, that fits Mr. Rembert.
Yep.
Like, he is walking resistance. He's walking resilience. He is everything that those who tried to kill him, he's everything that they feared, because what he did was he survived. He survived and he thrived. He's doing work. He's doing artwork. They tried to kill his spirit, and that spirit is still thriving. And so, yeah, I thank you for what you just said, because that was very profound, very insightful, and very powerful. And Mr. Rembert, I would like to hear what you have to say on the impact and how you're navigating through this and how your life has changed, because I know that we kind of got an insight of it from the film, but I would still like to hear your voice on how you are being resilient, how you are still resisting. I swear that unmute button gets us every time. Something about that unmute button. It's all right, take your time, we're not going nowhere. Take your time. We didn't have technology when we were growing up.
Reference Winfred, whenever you see his paintings, and I hope you all have had the opportunity to do that, I often think, if I had been Winfred, all of my paintings would be in black and blue and brown. But his colors are phenomenal. That all he went through, his work has color, bright, brilliant colors. So that tells me that they did so much to try to destroy him. Somehow he incorporates some hope, no matter how minute it is. He may say he doesn't have any hope, but I think he does. And he has some love and resilience. And the work is phenomenal. Those colors are so vibrant, they're alive. And I think, as he said, this work will be here a long time. And I hope when people look at the work, you realize that although he went through a lot, and he's still going through a lot, he somehow was so creative that he has produced phenomenal work in spite of that. So I hope that when you get the opportunity to look at it, remember this guy went through so much, but from that, he was able to have hope, and he's shown some resilience. Although he's weak at it, having gone through 40 years, he's still fighting. But when I look at what he's producing, there is some resilience there, and there's some hope. Although hate was there, I don't think hate has conquered him.
I don't think so either. That artwork, no, it's not. It has not conquered him at all. How can people find his paintings, his artwork? Like, where can they go to look at it?
I think WinfredRembert.com. Is that right, Taylor?
Yeah, so he's got some paintings on his website. And then McBlain Books, which is based in New Haven, Connecticut, sells a number of his originals. The sale of his original artwork is a huge support for him and his family. Winfred, you figured out that unmute button yet?
He's working on it.
Yeah. We want to hear you. There's also a couple of galleries.
Yeah. We got him.
Yeah. Winfred. I was telling about.
Can they hear you?
I heard you. I heard what you were saying, Shirley. Thank you.
Right.
But you can go winfredrembert.com and you can see it.
Yep.
Or else you can go on YouTube and
Come down, John, because this thing keep muting on it.
Winfred, can people buy some of your originals these days? Is that still happening?
well,
Yes, they can buy them.
yes, you can buy a few things. Yes, I have a few things in my possession that can be bought.
So maybe people should just email Winfred Rembert artist at gmail.com to get in touch with you directly.
That's so true.
Okay.
That's all we can't see over
Mr. Rembert.
I have some that I'm not trying to sell until my book comes out. So there's a lot of,
Tell us about the book.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, yeah, what is your book?
it's called Chasing Me to My Grave.
Mm.
And it's and that's what I feel sometimes, that I'm being chased, day in and day out. I'm being chased to my grave, and that's, I don't know nothing to do about it. So I have a few pictures in my possession that's I'm trying to hold until the book comes out. That's about 6 months from now. And I have some that I will sell right now.
Mm-hmm.
But there's some that's strictly, you'll find them in the book. And so those ones I will not sell until the book come out. And so, but I do have pictures for sale. And if you get in, come on my website, I'll make sure you get to look at the ones I do have for sale.
Tell her that you're doing your trilogy.
And I'm doing my life story from the time I got arrested and from the time I got lynched all the way up until my 27-year prison stint. That's what they gave me, 27 years. And these people, to Black men have a tough life to live.
Mm-hmm.
And just being Black, period. What is it about, maybe somebody on the panel can tell me, what is it about Black skin that irks white folks so much? I mean, they see the Black skin and right away they ready to do things to you, Yeah, or think you a bad person or something, So, you can't be good if you're Black. That's the way to see the world seems. What is it about Black skin, that irks people? What is it?
Panelists?
Yeah.
You don't want me. You don't want me. You don't want me answering it. I already showed myself before we got started. You don't want me to answer that question. Somebody else better answer that question. Because that is a good question. What is about melanin?
Yeah.
And what is it about the Black man, the Black skin, that makes when their presence is, and women, when they're walking down the street or when someone sees them, there becomes this immediate feeling of attack, fear, I don't want, they're not worthy. And then the audacity of that, I have the right to treat them this way.
Yeah. My
Me.
wife wants to answer that question.
All right, ma'am. Jump in.
I have to butt in, but when you said Black skin, it's not just any Black skin. It's a particular Black skin. It's the ones who they brought over here. It's a shame. They knew what they've done to us. They knew how they integrated with us, and it shows through the children. Some of us light, some of us dark. We didn't get that way by accident. They're ashamed of what they done. They want to hide it because if you come all the way from Africa, you're okay. But the ones that they brought here against their will are the ones that they can't stand because it's a constant reminder of what they done and how they treated us, and they don't want to see it. They want you back over there. They fear the man because he is supposed to be dominant. So let's get rid of him completely. We'll deal with the woman, but let's get rid of the men completely. Get them out of the way because they are a threat to them. So now you think about it. Anybody can come from Africa and they're treated with respect. It's us who they brought over here against our will that they can't deal with because look at your color. It didn't get that way by accident.
Did you just call me out, sis?
And I'm thinking that's my father. You would know what I'm talking about, and I know
you're right.
I'm just telling you, that's the way it is. That's it. That's you know, that's the problem. They're ashamed of what they done. The sentences. They don't want us to be seen. But you know, they the one who done it. They did all.
I think there's a part of that, this whole idea is control and power, and that for some reason they have inferiority problem and they feel that one way is to be superior, and one way of being superior is showing control, complete control. And they're threatened by, you know, they became threatened when Obama was elected because they saw them losing control. That power is very important to them. And when I just read this book about caste, and that the coloring allowed them to separate out and be dominated on one based on color, because that's what they use to form the American caste system. And it's based on American hate system. But it's so, I say, you know, hate, it seems as if it's baked in the dirt. I mean, I guess because of all the blood and it just has, it's been passed on. And people say, you know, I say, just like I feel that there are DNA changes that occurred to African Americans here because of 400 years of trauma. This coin has two sides to it. And our side is we know what they've done to us to degrade us, but that other side give them this idea of being superior, and they are always in fear of losing that. And they have worked so long, for 400 years, to maintain that. And no one stopped them from the cruel things that they did. It is so inhumane what they did. So I think it's a very complex thing, but I think that they need to feel superior, and anyone that threatens that, they need to eliminate that. And if the blacker the man is, I know that studies show that African Americans who are a lighter complexion don't get the prison time that a darker African American would get. It's so many layers to this hate. And the thing is, the scars that we have as African Americans, it's going to take work for us to get over that, but it's going to take time for them to get over the fact of the hate that dwells in them, that I believe that they passed it on.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Generational. If the African American indigenous people carry generational trauma, then the people who inflict it, they have to carry it too.
I agree.
You know, and so the problem that we're facing in this nation right now is that for 400 to 500 years, we've had no choice but to face generational trauma and to tackle it. And they've had the privilege of not having to, you know, and so that's where we are right now.
When you talk about it, there are those who know different. and would like to see us treated better. But there are those who feel their place in history, their place in status where they live. They want to be separate. They want to be greater. They want to be better, but we have great minds within our race who have done great things and could do more, but being held back. My husband got a book that called Don't Hold Me Back. We have been held back for many, many years. And the ones that are trying to help us come out of this hole, I applaud them for taking the opportunity and the chance to try to help us. But we got to start helping ourselves. We got to stop being apart from one another and be together as a family. You know, I remember when I was a little girl, how when a person was die and leave the family, how everybody come together to help that person. We got to go back to that. Helping each other.
Yeah, the family, the collective. You're right. You're right. I want to switch gears quickly because I know that our time is dwindling down. And this question really is for Winfred, because I'm going to tell you this part. There were a couple of parts in there in the film that really shook me. And of course, it was about how, you know, the healing aspect. But the other thing that shook me, especially for those of us here who are on the panel who are activists, and in our history, in order to be able to survive, activists have always needed to depend on each other. Like that was a part of that survival aspect and that camaraderie and that trust. And when you said that you were betrayed by civil rights workers or a civil rights worker, that hit me, because I was like, we're in the midst of a revolution in this country, you know? And if we're in the midst of a revolution and you were not, and you were betrayed by a civil rights worker, what does that mean? And so I wanted to ask you, when that happened, and I know this is really a simple and basic question, and you've probably been, you know, asked this before, but I want to know, you know, and I'm pretty sure other people want to know too, is how did you feel when that person who you thought you could trust to protect you and who was doing the work that you was doing betrayed you?
Oh, it was horrible, because I felt that during that betrayal, that was, I'm gonna say 50, 60 white people that she called. She called them and told them I was in her home. And instead of telling me, Winfred, I can't do anything for you. You know, you maybe you can find somebody else, you know, and move on. But she didn't tell me to move on. She welcomed me in her home, and she went in the next room and called the police. She made me comfortable, made me a cup of coffee and everything. And she went in the next room, and something in my heart said to me, where is she? And I went and I looked in the kitchen and I didn't see her. She was gone and left me alone in the house. And I looked out the window and I saw all these white people out there when they had their axe handlers and shotguns and everything. And I felt really, really, I thought maybe that might have been the end of my life, that she had really had betrayed me to the end of my life. I felt I was at the end of my life, because there was a big oak tree standing there with the big limbs on it. And I know these white people have ropes and everything in their hand. They have everything there is to kill you, you know. So, but thank God they didn't kill me. You know, I don't, you know, I did feel real betrayed about that. And I didn't think that could happen, you know, especially with the inside of the NAACP and the civil rights movement that we was in, in that little town there, I didn't feel no portrayal could be done, you know. So, but that's what she did. She portrayed me, and I don't.
Husband left her.
Yeah, they say her husband had, left her. You know what she did? She welcomed me in her home, and she said to me, she said, my husband is not here. He went down street to get some beer, but he's gonna go to Tallahassee, Florida to see his mom, and maybe he'll take you with him, have a seat, be comfortable, and give you a cup of coffee. And that's what she did. And she went in the next room and she called the police and told them that they didn't have to look for me no more because I was in her home.
Wow. Wow.
That hurt me today.
Yeah, that hurts real bad.
Winfred, did you ever see her again?
Never seen her again.
I would like to.
Oh, need to go and have a talk with her.
Yeah, I was looking for her. We went there. I went looking for her, but she was gone.
Of course she was. Of course she was. Well, ladies, go ahead. No, go ahead.
Okay. But if you actually if you met or seen this woman again, would you actually ask her, or would you question her or ask why you did what you did?
I would never say a word to her. If I saw her again, I would never say anything to her. I mean, that's over and gone. She did what she did. She can't undo it. And, there ain't nothing I can do I won't do anything to her about it, so
he won't.
I'll just move on and let that be, go on bye-bye.
I mean, like I said, and I mean, and I know exactly, I'm not gonna say I know exactly how you feel, because I don't know exactly how you feel, but I would say like in 2010, I had an incident where I was attacked by a police officer, and I was pregnant at the time. And I just remember screaming constantly, I'm pregnant, and there was another officer that stepped in, and he got the other officer off of me, and he told him, sir, she said she's pregnant, leave her alone. But I remember reaching out to a member of the NAACP locally, and he came into my home, and I don't want to say who it is because there might be people in here that know who it is, but he came into my home, and I told him my story, and then I told him, the doctor that treated me, and I told him the nurse that took care of me, and I told him, and I opened up to him. And then I remember the police asking me to come to the police station to talk to them. And me getting there, and then there was a room of 6 police officers. They were all white males, older white males, and then him sitting there right next to them, and them all trying to convince me that what happened didn't happen. And I just remember holding on to so much anger for so long. And I remember thinking, like, this is supposed to be my people, and they're supposed to help me, and they're supposed to, be by my side for this, not just this incident, but just for our community altogether. And I felt like at that time I was just all alone, and I was trying to get my story out there all by myself. So I had to take to the social media, because we have social media right now, but I had to do all those things on my own, and it took me a very, very long time to move on from that. And the funny thing is that now we actually kind of work together, and I've never brought that situation up, even though those feelings are there, and it's just like, I don't know if I ever will, because at this point in time in my life, I feel like I moved past that incident, and bringing that back up isn't going to help me. But if we can work together now on a certain cause or a certain issue, and we can be together in this moment, then that's a plus. And then I don't know, like, I feel like if you were to meet this lady now, there would probably be so much guilt and so much resentment on her part for what she did that she probably would just see you and walk right on by.
Yeah, you know. You know, but unlike you, there was no one for me to tell my story to. You know, there was no one I could, you know, I'm sitting in jail for the next, what, 7 years. So there was no one except the inmate next to me that I could tell that story to. And that was, what good would that do? You know?
Ladies and gents, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I had to wait till I come home and get released from prison and tell my wife the story. She was the only one I had to tell.
You didn't tell me right away.
And I didn't tell, that's right, I didn't tell her right away, you know? So I don't know. I thought my story was just completely dead. There wasn't nothing I could do about it, so just let it go.
Ladies and gents, I would like to thank you all. Of course, we're not going anywhere and it's Q&A time, but I would like to thank all of you all for allowing me to share your space and to be able to have conversation with you. It is very obvious that the legacy of slavery and enslavement and colonialism has not only made us victims, but because we're not victims. We are a victimized people. Has put us in a place of victimization, but at the same time, we've also had to become our own healers. And so we are continuously in this space and this place of trying to figure out how to heal, because there is really nothing out there for us in the formal, colonial world of what we need, of the type of medicine that we need. And I'm not talking about the type of drug that you take, but the medicine, ancestral medicine that was taken away from us because of the legacy of slavery, because of enslavement, because of the plantation system. And so I thank you for being bold enough to come and to have this conversation with us.
Thank you.
And especially you, well, especially all of you all, but I do want to direct this portion to Winfred, because you are a survivor, and you are right that most people do not survive. We've got people who are still being lynched and they're not surviving, and those conversations are not being held. And so just your presence here is resistance and love, and proof of what the ancestors who ended up over here from the African diaspora can be. And so I just wanted to say, and from all of us, thank you for being bold enough to re-traumatize yourself in this space. And now I'm going to hand it over to the Q&A people.
Thank you. Thank you so much to the panel. Thank you, Mr. Rembert, for being here, sharing your story, and allowing us to listen. And thank you to all of you all for your commitment to truth and honesty and fighting this horrific situation we're in.
Thank you.
Lee, you should just go.
My name is Lee Zanger, and I work with Connecting the Dots. I'm privileged to be able to work with Connecting the Dots. I'd also like to thank the panel and Allie for doing such a great job moderating, and thank you all for sharing your stories and enriching me and everyone else who's been in this audience. I'd like to take a moment to remember the victims of the known lynchings in Anne Arundel County. John Sims, George Briscoe, Wright Smith, Henry Davis, King Johnson, and George Armwood from Somerset County, an ancestor of our panelist, Tina Johnson. We also recognize the over 40 victims of lynching in Maryland and the hundreds and thousands of others whose names deserve to be said and who deserve to be remembered and held in our hearts.
Lee, what is Connecting the Dots?
Connecting the Dots is a social justice organization that Monica runs. And I'm just honored to be able to work with her and the other wonderful people in that organization. And they're one of the groups that sponsored this evening and helped enlighten all of us here in Anne Arundel County.
Okay. Good work.
Thank you, and thank you for being here. So we're going to launch into our Q&A section now. Our Q&A people are going to be pulling those questions. Y'all are on.
Okay, hello. I'm Linda Davis, a member of Connecting the Dots. Thank you all. We're going to have the Q&A section here. We're reading questions from what you all have put in. And Allie, there was one question for you on the name of the person who produced the music you provided in the beginning.
I will put it in the chat for you.
Thank you.
Okay, hi, my name is Emma Buckman. I'm also going to be helping out with Q&A today, and so I have a question here. So we were fortunate to get some questions from the Maryland Lynching Truth and Reconciliation Commission, so a few of those questions are from them. And so the first question, and this is for all panelists, whoever would like to answer, the question is, a common request from the public and experts is to investigate attempted lynchings in Maryland, both during our charged time period and in recent years. What might we learn from such investigations that may further contextualize the confirmed lynchings that are our primary charge to research? And I'm like Allie, I'm not afraid to call on people, so.
Maybe you want to kind of break that question down a little bit. That was quite a bit too.
Yeah, sorry. I guess what the question, to break the question down, would be to ask, what do you think is important, the most important aspect that comes from doing these investigations of lynchings from the past, and how does that bring about contextualizing it in both in terms of our history and coming to terms with it, but then also bringing that to our present to try and create a better path forward.
I think it's very important to, if possible, if you can find out something about that person, so there can be more than a name. I did this thing where people speak names, and they were able to find some information, and that make you realize these were human, not to just say Annabelle Henderson. But if you see Annabelle Henderson was a mother of 5 or something like that, I think that it is personalized that person, and that they were a human being, and maybe give a picture of them and try to define the time when they may have been lynched. Because I think there's a period of time where they were less, and then they increased up again, if that's possible.
I don't know.
Anybody else want to try and take that question? If not, I'll just
That's a tough question.
Yeah, it is. Do you want me to repeat the question, or should we move on to another?
Move on to another.
Okay. All right, we can do that.
Shirley answered it.
So Mr. Rembert, this is Linda again. A second question. As a survivor of an attempted lynching, what healing, if any, would you receive from confronting your attempted killers? Is healing what you want, or something else? And I wanted to also point out from the chat, someone said that you had said in the film you couldn't change the world, but you could make a dent. This person said, from where they sit, you, sir, have absolutely changed the world. You most certainly have changed this person's and a lot of us here. And for that, we all thank you. And there's a couple other pieces to that question that people wanted to know that's similar to that. Were any charges ever brought against the white people attempting to lynch you? And do you know who they were, and are they still in the community?
Well, the white people that attempt to lynch me were law enforcement people themselves. State police, city police, county police, and just people who wanted to be a part of a lynching. That's I don't know how I can bring any charges against anybody who, all those guys are dead in their grave now, I think. Because they were older. You know, I was in my 20s, and I think maybe they was in their 50s, and some of them in their 60s at that particular time. So I would think that most of them are dead and gone. I don't know that any charges I could bring against them at all. I would love to. I would love to bring some charges, you know, but you know, or get an apology or something, you know. I don't think that'll ever be done. But I go there now, back to that same place, and I'm really treated like a king. I go there now, and I just received the key to the city. You know, the mayor there now gave me the key to the city, and wow, I just, they treat me real nice. Did you hear me?
Yes.
I have a question. Can I jump in? I'm sorry. Can I jump in?
Sure.
Yeah. So I want to ask you all this because I'm going to be honest with you, if that's okay. Monica, can I be honest? Can I be honest? Oh, I need to know.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead and be honest.
All right. I'm just going to be straight up with you. I'm all about burn everything down. Okay. Burn everything down. And so with that being said, for you all, healing, like this nation, when it comes to healing, do you think it is possible for us as a nation to heal because of lynchings and the things and the deaths that we're still seeing now? Because I'm telling you, even I try to have hope, but then we have the Ahmaud Arbery's, you know, or your story, Mr. Rembert. I mean, you know, it's like our past is our present, and our present is our past. And it appears if nothing changes, it's going to be our future. Well, and so healing, what do you all think about that in this nation?
I'm with you. I mean, at this point in time, are we really going to be able to heal? Because, I mean, we like to say that lynchings are in the past, but they're not in the past at all. They're still happening. Just because they're not hanging them from ropes, they're still shooting them in the street, or they're still choking them out in the streets, and still the situations are still happening. How can we heal from something if it's not over?
As a physician, my job is to work on healing. And when people come to me because they want to be healed from something, and that's one thing I wanted for Ashes to Ashes. I feel that when a patient comes to see me, the first thing I need to know is their history. We underestimate how important that is. If you walk into a doctor's office and they don't talk with you or try to understand your history, and they start injecting you with something, you say, wait a minute, you don't know I'm allergic to certain things. In other words, you need to know the history and the impact of that history to heal. And this country, people are shocked that, and they, you know, the one about Turner, Mary Turner. People just, oh my, if you saw it doing Ashes to Ashes in the church, the facial expressions of people when you know, the father talked about what they did to his son, people just like, people, this country don't even talk about what happened. Do you know that we still have on the books that people can still be lynched? Yet in 2019, November 2019, they passed a law in this country where you cannot abuse animals, but you can still lynch us. So I think that we have to, as a physician, I have to believe that first a person got to come and want to be healed, but a part of me helping that person to heal is acknowledging that history and I need to take that history into consideration to make my recommendations. And I look at several factors before I make my recommendations on what I can do to help you. And the first part of this country healing is to acknowledge that history. They said, they still saying that as slaves, we had 3 meals a day, and the only time in history where the unemployment for African Americans was 0%, and that we had shelter. They don't, and they said, they talk about slavery as if it was a walk in the park. That history need to be made known. I think that's important, that we as African Americans don't even know that part of that history. And we need to know too about our contribution to this country, because we don't really realize what we gave to make this country what it is, and what we endured and what we have accomplished that's given us strength to endure these 400 years. So I want to know that history of what my people did, how they did, and able to survive now. And the ones who did what they did need to know their history. Germany they brought it out. South Africa brought it out. They acknowledge it, and it's not perfect, but it's much better than it was in Germany. Did you know that what they use in the framework for Hitler was they used America, Jim Crow, to incorporate that in that design for what Hitler did. The Germans made it their plan to eliminate all things associated with Hitler. We got statues to the people that enslaved us. So I think that it's going to take acknowledging that history and trying to correct it. Being aware of the fact that Germany, they annihilated thousands, millions of Jews. They are in a better place than they were 50 years ago. And that's because they acknowledged that history and was determined to change it. So I have to believe that we can't go through another 400 years of this stuff. So I have to believe that the certain things need to be done. And a part of that is acknowledging their history with a plan to correct it.
Thank you so much for, I don't know what to say. It's just so great. Just an amazing answer. We have about 10 minutes left, and we have so many questions, so I'm trying to find I'm trying to decide to go in order, but I did want to just sort of redirect one question to back to Ms. Johnson. It's this same question that was asked of Mr. Rembert what healing, if any, would you like to receive? But from the perspective of a family member and someone who was your ancestor, who was the victim of this crime.
Well, I would say for me, I guess it's not necessarily a healing, because this, how do I put it? How we technically, we like to, I don't know, I'm trying to figure out the right words to say here, sorry. But like, I didn't know George. So for me, it's not necessarily more of a healing, it's more of a get to know. So I want to get to know who he was as a person. Those are the things that I want to know, because anytime you Google George Armwood, you always get that one story. And I mean, you get several other stories, but you don't get to know who he was as a person. And like they were saying earlier, you know, they were people and he was a person. And when I watched my grandmother tell me this story, which she only told me once, you could tell that for her, he was a person. He was more than just an incident or an occurrence or a murder or a lynching or whatever else you want to call it. He was not that to her. He was her family, and he was someone she loved. And this incident caused a lot of trauma in her life, and you could see it. And as she talked about it, you know, she felt that in that moment. And at this point in time, you know, I feel like it's great that we're at this point. I just wish we were at this point, you know, before she was dead and gone. You know, while she was still here and she could physically see what's going on in the community and the different things that are happening, that we're putting forth the change and the effort. And yeah, I think the best way of healing is really just knowing and putting a life to a person.
For me, I think that that's one of the things, one of the reasons I want to do Ashes to Ashes, to do a funeral. Funerals are not only for those that are dead, but it's also for those that are alive. That to let them know, our ancestors know, we never forgot them and we love them. And that we, the ones that are here, celebrate them and respect them, and we'll do our best not to forget them and what they endured, and do all we can to make sure it stopped happening.
Can I interject just one thing into this, Shirley? Wouldn't it be nice? Can you hear me?
No. I hear you a little bit.
Okay, you know what?
That's better.
You can hear me now a little better. Can
I see you too?
No, I'm looking a mess.
Oh, okay.
You know, I wish in my heart that we could connect, each one of us, because what they did to us was inhuman. They took our name. They erased it from our minds and our memory, that we can't connect back to where we came from, truly. And I watch TV, blood don't lie. It shows up. And I see people, and I know that in some form or another, we are connected. But who am I? When you take a person's identity, you do a lot to hold that person back and to hurt that person. To take my identity, not allow me to know where I came from exactly, not to know what tribe I came from, that's wrong. That's a part of healing that a lot of us need. You're angry, you're frustrated because what? Who am I? I know now we have made our place here, but there's still a longing to know, who am I? Where did I come from? Where is my people? Other than the people that's here, I have another family. I'd like to know where they're at. That's a part of healing. And another part of healing is for the people who inflicted this pain on us, is to acknowledge it. And for us not to be ashamed of what's been done to us. Put it out there. Let people see and know the struggle that we've come through thus far, and still trying to overcome the adversity that's been put upon us. Now that's what I would like for you to think about.
That was extremely touching, and we are definitely, the loss is what we as a people suffer from the most, the loss of not being able to really know and trying to constantly search to find the answers to those questions. I want to acknowledge that there were 2 people in the Q&A who had their hands up. So I wanted to give them an opportunity to express their. Are you shaking your head no at me, Emma?
They would have to put it in the chat or ask it in the Q&A in order to.
Okay. So if your hand is up, please put your question in the Q&A.
And we do just have a couple more minutes. And people want to know, there are a couple questions about putting this film in schools, in the curriculum. And if there are plans to do that.
You go, Taylor.
Yeah, so the film is currently finishing its festival circuit, and we're super lucky to have been Oscar qualified. So the big dream is that Winfred and Shirley and I and all of us get to celebrate this on a bigger level. But what's most meaningful about the whole process of putting the story into film has been the ability to share it in places like this. I mean, that's what film does. Yes, we're hoping we have a couple opportunities through PBS education to share it through schools, but mostly, the film was personally financed. We didn't get any money to make this, and it's free to the public for all community screenings. It's free online. It's free to be licensed. It's free to be incorporated into any sort of educational programming. All anyone has to do is get in touch with me or us, and we can make that happen. So yeah, I mean, Winfred in particular, there's a line that was really hard to cut from the edit. Winfred, I don't know if you remember talking about this though, when you spoke about your dream to really bring this and your art into schools. So we're working on that. And if anyone that's listening has a connection to school systems or school curriculum, please reach out.
Go ahead. Sorry, go ahead, Dr. Whitaker.
An extension of Ashes to Ashes is that I wanted to have the film, but I'm working on a International Speak My Name Day, but I want the 5 major areas that involved us, slavery, post-Reconstruction, Jim Crow, civil rights, Black Panthers, Black Lives Matter, and have it so it be an educational venture where each one of those areas would be defined, incorporated in there, speaking those names, but also defining too often the contributions and the resilience and the hope of African Americans not included. So that's a part of the project that I'm working on, and it's called The Noose, American History Through the Lens of Lynching, Hope, Hate, Hope, and Resilience. And incorporating that, because I think it's imperative that not only this world has been taught that African American didn't make any contribution, we just took from this world. And it's my feeling that they may think that, but I don't want us as African Americans to think that. I want us to realize of our contribution. So that program, I worked with somebody in education to design this project with that in mind and incorporate these names and in the film and under this whole umbrella of Ashes to Ashes and the Noose.
Dr. Whitaker, I just want to say that, what you're saying is absolutely true, but I think everyone needs to know the history. Even, African Americans definitely are priority, but everybody needs to know that we have made contributions to this continent, that without the contributions of Black people, half of the things, or maybe even more, would not even exist. So everybody needs to know that history.
I only believe that, and that the curriculum is set up for anybody that is breathing in this country will be exposed to that. But it's imperative for me to this education about slavery and et cetera, that is incorporated in there. The the strength and a contribution that my people made. And I think that they need to know, because they painted the picture of my people of being nothing but takers and not givers. So I think this coin has two sides to it. And I think them realizing the strength that we have is that they need to know my history and how they fit into that history, and how we, in spite of the part they played in this history, what strength that we've been able to garner and use to ought to survive 400 years of this.
But I think we don't necessarily have to wait for the educational system to start educating the community. I mean, that's something that we can technically do on our own.
Well, I have done books. I've done books. Needless to say, I've done a book on Lift Every Voice and Sing, because I think that's a very strong. So I'm not waiting for anyone to do that for me and for those around me. I have done children book with that in mind. As I told you, one book. I didn't ask to be born Black. I just got lucky. I did a whole book on Lift Every Voice and Sing with artwork to incorporate that. So no, I will never wait for them to define me. They've had 400 years in the definition that others have made of me. I'm not impressed with.
All right.
Well, I think those are all incredible sentiments, and it's very hard to follow up all those this incredible discussion that has been so honest, and that I feel so incredibly honored and grateful to have attended and listened to. And so I certainly can't articulate in the way that we've just heard, but I certainly want to give our deep gratitude for the panelists. I think this was such an experience for all of us this evening, and it was incredible for you all to share, to re-traumatize yourselves, and to be so honest with an audience that you can't see. But I know that if you could see all of us, we would be applauding and sending tremendous love and gratitude to all of you who so deserve it. This is such an incredibly important film, and I would encourage everyone to not only to educate yourselves and your community, but to also advocate that we need to start telling the truth in schools. We need to start telling history, American history. And I just want to say a couple of quotes. Dr. Whitaker and Mr. Rembert both said that in the film that people don't talk about who was lynched, that nobody wants to talk about it, and that we must, because this is American history. And so I would implore all of us to talk about this, to share this whole screening and panel discussion has been recorded. You should absolutely share this. I want to say to white people that we need to avail ourselves of these courageous conversations and documentaries and books written and poems read and songs read, so that we can really listen and learn. And then we need to educate ourselves. And then we all need to be relentless in our commitment to be anti-racist, and to be anti-racist every day and every opportunity we have, because being relentless is the only way that we are individually all going to make a dent, as Mr. Rembert said, and we all need to make that dent if we want change. Because Allie said something about our history being and African Americans' history being their present and not wanting it to be their future. And this is a responsibility that we all have to take to make the difference and make the change. So let me just do some acknowledgements to our incredible Mr. Rembert, who told such a difficult story to help us all. I can't possibly express to you in the right words what that meant. And Mrs. Rembert, who appeared off screen and said some really poignant and beautiful things. And you did all see her in the film, and we thank her so much. Allie, we knew that you would be the perfect person for moderating, and boy, were we right. Thank you. Dr. Whitaker, I will look back and listen to the wise things you said throughout this taping, and we'll use them as words to spread far and wide. Our friend Tina Johnson, who never lets us down when we need a truth teller to share a painful history, and to Miss Rees for making this extraordinary film and telling this story. We thank you so much. We always want to thank Will Schwartz and the Maryland Lynching Memorial Project, change maker there, and an incredible organization. Thank you, Damian Sinclair and Maryland Hall, always wonderful partners, our terrific sponsors, the Caucus of African American Leaders, the NAACP, CAST, March on Maryland, WISE, and Action Annapolis. And I always have to give shout out and love to Connecting the Dots members. What an incredible group of wonderful people making change. Please join us. You are most welcome. And if you can't join us because you're not near, you can join the NAACP, different chapters all over Maryland. There are Maryland Lynching Memorial Project coalitions all over Maryland. And if you'd like to make a donation, you can also follow us on Facebook. Just put in Connecting the Dots. And let me just say that we really encourage everyone to help combat institutional racism by supporting Black-owned businesses and organizations fighting for racial justice. And your last big dent that we can all make in November is to vote. Thank you all so much for being here. Have a wonderful night. Good night.
Good night.
Good night. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.